I'm sure you've heard about this Jesus, right? As soon as I heard about what he could do, I knew that he was someone that I needed to go see. Well, I mean, not see, right? Anyway, I guess you know he was in town yesterday. People were talking about this sick lady that was healed, and they said that he brought a little girl back to life. I don't know if that was true, but I didn't care. I knew where she lived. So I heard this great commotion going on from inside her house, and I waited outside. And when he came out, I was just like, Jesus, have mercy on me. Jesus, over here, mercy.
Did he answer you?
Ta-da! You can see where I'm going with this, right? Yeah, he did. He comes over, and he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he asked me, do you really believe I can do this? He touched my eyes and said, because you believe, it will happen. And then I opened my eyes, it's like, wow, I can see.
Good morning. Yes. I'm excited today, I'm not gonna lie. I love that video for one thing. I know people say like, oh, it's just an actor or whatever, but listen, I get giddy in the corner just watching it. I mean, it's stinking an awesome video to watch a guy who his life, started out one way, and then Jesus entered, and then it became something different. Something changed when Jesus came in, and it's just incredible. But anyway, my name's Kendall Harness, if I haven't met you yet, and I'm the student life pastor here at thatchurch.com, which means I work with the people that sit in the black pews in the front. But anyway, the thing is that today's the first time I've ever gotten to speak by myself on this stage. I've sat in probably almost every seat in this room and watched Dad speak 10,000 times, and it's just been amazing. It's an amazing place, and God has done a work here at thatchurch.com, and it was nothing we did or nothing my dad did. Trust me, if you saw this thing started, you would understand. And some of you were there. It started with 6 people, and so it's just amazing what God has done and what he's brought us from and through and what he's going to continue to do here. His work is not finished. And so I thank you for allowing me to be up here today and speak to you, and I hope I bring a good one and God has something to say. So this is the 3rd week, like we said, of our series, The Counselor. Last week was amazing. I actually didn't get to watch it live. I joined online like so many people do throughout the week. And I joined on Tuesday. I watched at thatchurch.com. I watched our podcast because actually last week on Sunday, I was in the student building working with a lot of our students. We're training and equipping them on how to lead a small group. We do junior high small groups on Sunday mornings. And right now we're training and equipping our leaders to lead those small groups. And so it was really amazing time, but I didn't get to watch the service live, but I watched it throughout the week, and Dad was using action figures, and it was a little weird, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. It was good. God did something with it, see? God did something with it. So, but anyway, we're going to jump into this story, and it's in Matthew chapter 9, verse 27 through 30. It says, as Jesus went on from there, 2 blind men followed him, calling out, have mercy on us, son of David. When Jesus had gone indoors, the blind men came to him, and he asked them, do you believe that I am able to do this? I want you to keep that in mind as we go throughout this service. Do you believe that I am able to do this? Is the question that Jesus poses. Yes, Lord, they replied. Then he touched their eyes and said, according to your faith, let it be done to you. And their sight was restored. So according to your faith. So today we're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about the kind of faith that honors God. That's the kind of faith we're going to talk about today and we're going to discuss, because these 2 men obviously had a lot of faith, because 2 blind men trusted a man they'd never seen before to do something that no one could ever do in their lives. They had to trust and they had to believe that was going to happen before it even happened. And so the first point is believing when I don't see it. The kind of faith that honors God believes when I don't see it. For these 2 blind men, it was quite literal. They had to believe when they really couldn't see anything. But I think it's no coincidence that they were blind. I think that Jesus, and he doesn't believe in coincidences. God didn't write coincidences. Everything in the Bible is there for a purpose. So these guys are blind for a reason. They could have been anything else. I mean, honestly, if they had leprosy, it would have been just as cool to see them healed, or if they're paralyzed, they would have been just as cool as them being blind. But they're blind for a reason. I mean, they could have been LSU fans. I mean, really, God and Jesus may have gotten stumped on that one. He may have been like, "Oh, you're just in trouble." But no, he can heal you even of that disease. But the thing is that they could have been anything else, but they're blind for a purpose. They're blind for a reason. And the reason is that I think so many times in our lives as we walk through things, we start to feel blind. There's times where you're like, man, I don't see how this could come out okay. You know, I had it kind of, my puzzle was kind of together, and then God threw a curveball. And it's like, wait a minute. Now that doesn't fit into what I was thinking, God. You need to look at mine because it's better, okay? Yeah, I know you think this, but I've got this one, okay? And it's like, we start to become blind to what God is doing next. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't understand what's happening. And I think that's why you can relate. That's why these guys are blind. So you can kind of get that moment to relate with what happened to them. In Hebrews 11:1, it says, faith is the confidence that what we hope for will actually happen. It gives us assurance about things we cannot see. Now, you can't physically see God right now. That you can see him working, you can see things that he's doing, but physically being able to see God, you can't. But faith, through the lens of faith, you can see where God is going. You can see what he is doing. You can see the work in which he's working in. Point number 2 is faith that honors God persists when I face challenges. It persists when I face challenges. Verse 27b and 28a says, the men followed Jesus, calling out, have mercy on us, son of David. When Jesus had gone indoors, the blind men came to him. I know you're kind of like, okay, that's a weird kind of spot that you picked out. I picked it out for a reason, because there's things that the blind men actually do right here. We're going to mark them down. So the men followed him, they called out, and they came to him. Being blind, there's probably a lot of things that you can't really do. There's a lot of things. If Jesus had challenged them to a game of Scrabble, they'd have lost. Or if Jesus had said, hey, look, we're going to, I'm going to hold up a number of fingers, and you're going to, if you tell me how many there are, then I can heal you. But they'd have failed that too because they're blind. Jesus would be like, oh, well, we're stumped. We might as well just go home because that's not going to work. They probably couldn't even drive the camel. They had to ride on the back or something while someone else drove, because the blind, as you can imagine, it probably would have gone squirrely. But the thing is that these blind men understood there were things they couldn't do. There's just things, there's limits. There's limits. But at the same time, they also understood there were things that they could do. There were things that these blind men could be doing. First thing they can do, we can follow him. As long as he keeps talking. You know, if he stops talking and goes silent, we're in trouble. But the thing is that as long as Jesus keeps talking, hopefully he's the long-winded dude, we can find the guy. And we may run into 13 mailboxes on the way there, but we're going to keep following. So we're going to follow him. We're going to call out. And actually, in the original text, the word for calling out was a little more specific than our words are. It was a little more specific. It actually talks about, it's the word used for the sounds that a woman would make in childbirth. And some of you men in the room are thinking, oh, Lord, that sound? You got to be kidding me. Why were they making that noise? It'd throw everybody off. But the thing is that these guys are making almost an animalistic sound trying to get Jesus' attention. They'll do anything to get Jesus' attention. And so they understood they could follow. They understood they could call out. And the last thing was, when the time came, they understood they could come to Jesus. They're like, all right, I'm going to get to him. Because you got to think, this guy, Jesus, who heals everyone he comes in contact with, and he never preached a funeral. I mean, that's not even fair to the rest of us pastors. He's just like, Jesus gets invited to preach a funeral. He's like, oh, she's just asleep. We're sitting over here having to be normal humans. We're like, okay. But anyway, the thing is that, so he's pretty popular probably among people who are sick or blind or injured or something like that. Jesus would be a popular guy because people want to get healed. And so these blind men would probably have to work through people. They have to work through a crowd. Jesus had just raised a little girl from the dead. So it's got to be a moment where people are celebrating and all this crazy stuff's happening. And these blind men are having to kind of work through the crowd to get to Jesus. But their faith persisted when they faced challenges. And they did things. They did things. And let's see, it is James 2:22. It says, hold on. You see that Abraham's faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. Abraham's faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. I can bring a chair up here, and I know this is a common pastor illustration, but anyway, I can bring a chair up here, and it's like, I can tell you all day, it's a great chair, it's got 14 screws, and I put it together myself. It may not be a reason to trust it, but it's like, I've got this chair up here, and it's good, and then I'm like, but if I never sit in the chair, if I just tell you to sit in the chair, that's kind of one of those moments where like, I don't know if I trusted it. His faith wasn't made complete by what he did. See, there's times where your actions have to line up with what you're saying. The old little kid's phrase, actions speak louder than words. There's times where your actions have to speak louder. There's times where there's things you can be doing. Your marriage is falling apart. You're like, oh man, me and my partner, we're equally yoked. We equally hate each other. And and it was a weird marriage thing, and you two put it together just perfectly, just right to be wrong, you know what I mean? And so you're like, man, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't like her, she doesn't like me, and I constantly get nagged and all these types of things. You know what you can do though? First of all, you have to turn it over to God, because no matter how much you want to change the other person, you won't. You'll just sit there and get frustrated. But the thing is that you turn it over to God. And then you gotta love your spouse anyway, even when they're wrong. And I know that's like really hard, and I'm sure it is. I've never been married, but I think I understand what you're going through. I had a dog once, but anyway, that doesn't relate. That's not what I meant. But the thing is that, yeah, that's really different. But anyway, the thing is that the third thing you can do is you can get help. Get help. And the thing is that we have a fully paid staff here at thatchurch.com. We have a fully paid counseling team, a counseling team. And you're like, oh, what's a counseling team? Well, it's a team of people that are here at thatchurch.com who can give godly advice, godly counsel, who God speaks to, they read their Bibles, they know what they're talking about. And this group is here, and they're free. You can get counseling from them anytime. You call up to the office, hey, I'd like to make an appointment with a counselor. Boom, we can get it done right there, right then. And there's no excuse, but that's something you can be doing. I think so many times we want to just pray about it. Oh, if it's in God's will, oh, that's fantastic. But it's just like, there's things you can be doing. So the question that is beckoned is, what do you need to be doing? What do you need to be doing as an act of faith? You can give lip service to God. You can throw prayer requests up. You can say these things, but what are you doing? What are you doing? A few years back, we had this lady who was in the church who had been praying for her mother to come to church for 22 years. So he was praying for her mom for 22 years. And finally, after 22 years of prayer, this lady's mom came to church. This lady was in her 40s by this time, and her mom was in her 70s. But her mom came to church. And that Sunday morning, that mother gave her life to Christ. Amazing day. It was awesome. But after the service, we came up, and the lady was just sobbing, crying. The daughter, she was sobbing, crying. I mean, hootie puckering. It was bad. But she's sobbing really bad. And we're like, what is going on? Isn't this like a good thing? I mean, I know the tears of joy thing, but that's just always been kind of weird to me. But anyway, we asked the question, hey, what's wrong? Hey, are you okay? Is everything all right? She said, yeah. She said something really profound next. She said, it scares me that what if I had stopped praying for my mom after 20 years? What if I had quit? What if I'd given up after 20 years? What if it just wasn't in God's will after 20 years? The good Christian cop-out, just wasn't in God's will. What if I had stopped after 20 years? But then I began to think, I was like, okay, what if she'd stopped after 20 years? Maybe the lady would have come, maybe she wouldn't have. But at the same time, we serve the God of the universe, don't we? And it's like, I serve the God who created the world in 7 days, who spoke the sun into existence, who just speaks things and they just happen. So why on earth does my God, who's all powerful, why do you have to wait 22 years? What's the point? Because again, we don't believe in coincidences, so what's the point? Is that a coincidence? What's the significance of 22? I mean, is the number significant? I mean, it's a Taylor Swift song, but besides that, I don't think it's anything significant. And so it's like, why in the world would God have to wait? He's not held up. He's the God of the universe. He can do whatever he wants. So why 22 years? But I think the thing is that as you start to look at God's ultimate goal for your life, you start to see this story in a little bit of a different light, in a little bit of a different angle. Because when you start to understand that God is not here just to answer your request, but instead is here, his main goal is to gain a relationship with you. And through his relationship with you, gain relationships with everyone around you. That's his goal. Your perfect life could really, it couldn't matter any less to God. He really doesn't care if your life is perfect or not. What he cares more about is his relationship with you. There's a relationship there. And so now this lady who's prayed 22 years, you're like, well, why'd she have to wait that long? What's the big deal? Isn't 20 years enough? I mean, my goodness, doesn't that fulfill her obligation? Hadn't God heard her? But her relationship with God, since this request was waited for 22 years, her relationship with God was 22 years deep. She had 22 years of intentional prayer time with God that really grew her closer to God and gave her that real fundamental, solid relationship. But if God had answered the request in like 22 days, she could have chalked it up to coincidence. Oh, sure, it'd have been great. She'd have been happy about it. Absolutely, right? But at the same time, because of this great adversity that she faced and because of this mountain of a task and a mountain of a request, now God gets all the glory. And now she has 22 years invested in their relationship. Because the deal is this. The difference between God and a genie is that after 3 wishes, your relationship with the genie is kind of over. Nobody keeps a genie as like a friend. And the lamp's not worth anything. Once the genie's wishes are fulfilled, the lamp goes in the yard sale. I mean, nobody really cares. Because your relationship with the genie is directly connected to what the genie can do for you next. But your relationship to God is connected to what he's already done. Not what he's going to do, but what he's already finished, what he's already completed. How quickly do we give up? The ark that Noah built, you always see it in Sunday school. They teach you like 50,000 times. I was there every single time. But the thing is this. One of my Sunday school teachers is actually here. But anyway, how long did it take? The ark took 120 years to build. 120 years. What if after like 30, Noah was like, all right, guys, look, this ain't going to work anymore. I'm done wasting my life. Let's build a house, okay? I think I ate some bad tacos when Jesus gave me that assignment. And we're just going to call that a bad dream and call it a day. We're going to move on to something else. He'd been washed away in the flood. Paul trained for 14 years before he preached his first sermon. 14 years of training before he ever spoke. Moses, the great guy everybody talks about, led the people of Israel out, blah, 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 great man of God, was 90 years old before God ever used him. 90 years old. How quickly do we give up? Colossians 4:2 says, be persistent in prayer and keep alert as you pray, giving thanks to God. Be persistent in prayer and keep alert as you pray, giving thanks to God. I really like it because the first half says be persistent in prayer, which is exactly what the point is. Faith that honors God persists when I face challenges. But at the same time, it says keep alert as you pray. Keep alert. I had a baseball coach that always say, keep your head on a swivel. And he would usually say that, and then it's because he was throwing something at you next. And it's like, golly, man. He's like, keep your head on a swivel. Poof. It's like, good Lord. I didn't even see you coming, man. But he's like, keep your head on a swivel. And so keep your head up. Be alert as you pray. Because the thing is that God actually is working. And we do serve a God who's omniscient and knows everything. And so when he knows everything, he does see the bigger picture. The picture that maybe we don't see, or the picture that we don't want to see. There's sometimes we force it to the back, like, I don't want to see that. And so the thing is that this God who knows everything and sees everything might be answering your request in a different way than what you thought or what you wanted to. So sometimes you have to give thanks, even though it's not exactly what you wanted or exactly the way you wanted it. But the thing is this. He answered your request nonetheless. So as you pray, it says be persistent in prayer. I have to be persistent in prayer, and I have to actually write it down because I always forget. what I prayed for. And so sometimes I'll have that Hail Mary prayer. That's like, oh, well, here's a prayer. We just hope this one connects. But I don't persistently pray for it. And if I don't consistently pray for it, I don't remember it. And then in those moments, I forget to give thanks to God. I forget to thank him for what he does in my life, for what he's done for me. Be persistent in prayer and keep alert as you pray, giving thanks to God. Faith that honors God stays focused until I get to the finish. Final point. Faith that honors God stays focused until I get to the finish. Do you believe that I'm able to do this is the question. Do you believe that I am able to do this? Is the question Jesus asked. Now, you got to remember, these guys are blind, okay? And it's always tough for me to see these guys doing anything. It's hard because they're blind. I mean, I can imagine trying to do something just blindfolded. I mean, I'm fumbling around, falling down, mad, everything else. It's like, how in the world did they get anywhere? I don't know. But the thing is that these guys have followed Jesus for who knows how long. They've yelled and screamed, made a fool of themselves. They've come out when Jesus has asked. And Jesus, if you actually read the story, if you look at it, he doesn't even say anything to them. He just goes indoors. So there's like, I heard a door slam, but was that Jesus? I can't tell. It's like, what do we do now? We're out, so then they come inside. And then Jesus stands before them, and it's almost like a slap in the face, like he has the audacity to ask, do you believe that I can do this? And you're like, well, of course. We've been outside squawking like turkeys. I mean, my gosh, did you not hear us? It's like, hey, of course, right? But at the same time, I think it's an important question in how he asks it. He doesn't ask, do you believe that this is possible? Or that someone's able to do this, or that God is able, but do you believe that I am able to do this? Think about these blind men and where they would be at. They had no New Testament. They didn't even have the Old Testament, really. And so these guys have nothing to really base their faith off of, except for some stuff they heard. They'd heard some things. Okay, I heard something about this Jesus guy. They'd never seen him, obviously. But the thing is that, have you ever played the game telephone? You got the game telephone, all right? And when I was a kid, we'd always play. So you get in a big circle, and you go around, and you'd say a phrase, and at first it'd be like, whatever it is, like Johnny eats apples. And after Johnny eats apples, it'd go all the way around. And by the time it got back, it'd be like, Susie fights with the T-Rex on Tuesdays and Wednesday nights at poker night. And it's like, what in the world? How did you even get that? That's like 2 sentences longer than what we started with. But you probably had some smart aleck about halfway down that thought that they would change it, think it'd be funny. They're over there snickering and laughing with their 3 friends. It's like, kill you. But anyway, yeah. Sometimes teenagers like to mess up the games just to mess with the leaders. But anyway, the thing is that telephone game, I think it's the same kind of thing for these blind men. Think about the things they would have heard. They heard great things. They may have heard terrible things, but they couldn't see it to prove their own thoughts or to form their own things. And so when Jesus stands before them and says, do you trust me? It would have been a very hard moment to say, yeah, because they have no idea. They don't know this guy. They don't know what he's even done, really. They just heard about it. And it sounds good, but was it true? I'm sure other people had said things like that. There were other prophets. But faith that honors God stays focused until I get to the finish. And stays focused in prayer. I think it was our Bold series at Christmas. We did a series called Bold. And one of the messages was bold prayer. And the question that was asked, it took me several weeks to even work through it. But the question was, if God were to answer every one of your prayers from last week, how different would your world be? If he were to go back to last week and he were to take all your requests, all the things you prayed for, and he were to grant all those things, and he were to answer all those requests just the way you asked for them. Not any more, not any less, but just the way you asked for them. How different would your world be? How different would the world be? Or would you be like me and you'd be like, hey, God, you come back next week? I'll see you next week, man. You answer this week's prayer request, right? Give me like 3 more days. I'll tell you what, 3 hours, man. I could fix a lot in 3 hours. What are we trusting God for? See, hope is a desire, and faith is an action. Because we read in the James 2:22 verse, his faith and his actions were working together as faith was made complete by what he did. So what are we trusting God for? What area of your life, yeah, I went to private school, give me a break. But the thing is this, what area of your life are you not trusting God with? What area are you not turning over? You're holding on to it. I've been there too, we all have it. You all got those places. Well, we're just like, all right, God, look, I'll surrender all this, but this one, I'm gonna keep that. You handle that, and I'm gonna keep this one. And maybe when you get that done, you can come back over here and we'll talk about this one, okay? So, because this area is kind of scary, and you're kind of scaring me a little bit. So I don't think that's what I'm gonna give you yet, okay? You're not ready for it. God of the universe is not ready for my problems. But what are we not trusting God with? What area of your life are you holding on to? And what are you trusting God for? What area of your life are you trusting him with? He's faithful. He's faithful. I'm going to pray for you real quick. If everybody would just bow your heads. Today, some of you may have been thinking, Kendall, that sounds real good, man. It sounds real good. I like it, but and there was a couple of funny parts, but really, let's be legitimate for a minute. That was just some really good words. But the thing is that the God of the universe has a desire to have a relationship with you, and so much so that he was even willing to sacrifice his own son to have it, to have just a relationship with you. His goal is not to give you a perfect life. If it was, he'd be failing in a lot of our lives. But it's not. His goal is to have a relationship with you. And today, he wants to start that relationship. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to all come together today and you be kneeling on bricks and fix everything by next week. No, he just wants to begin the journey. Begin a journey with him. There's going to be ups and downs and all arounds, but it's starting a journey. And so today, there's some of you, he's tugging at your heart. I can feel it, that the Spirit is here, and he's like, look, you need to begin this journey. And if that's the case, then I want you to just pray with me. You can say it silently. You don't have to drink any Kool-Aid or nothing weird. Just say this silently in your own head, in your own mind. You don't have to say it out loud or nothing. You don't even have to do little lip motions, nothing. All you have to say is this. Is that, God, I understand I've messed it up. But at the same time, I understand that you sent your son to die on a cross for me and take my spot. Where I deserve to die, he died. And today I want to begin that relationship with you. I want to start fresh. And if you prayed that prayer today, then guess what? It's sealed. It's saved. You're saved. There's no take backs. There's no nothing. God's not an Indian giver. It's all you and him. And now you've begun this relationship. This is a starting point. Does that mean everything's going to be perfect when you leave this place? No, absolutely not. There's probably going to be things fall apart. It's going to be awful. But at the same time, you're going to have someone with you who will never leave you nor forsake you. He says, I'm with you always, even unto the end of the age. He's with you always. Through the good and the bad and the ugly and the pretty. He's there. And maybe you're in that other group though. Maybe today, you're like, Kendall, I've accepted Jesus and stuff. I got that part. But I've got an area in my life that I'm not surrendering for, that I'm not trusting God with. The cool thing about this story and the cool thing about God is that he sent his son to die so that he could keep his hand extended. He can extend his hand to you and he can be like, look, just take my hand. Just trust me. Do you trust me? That's what he's asking you today. He's standing in front of you and he's asking you, do you trust me with everything? God's not a very good negotiator. He didn't negotiate. It's all or nothing. But he's extending his hand to you. He's asking you, do you trust me? And so today I'm going to pray for you. And I hope that if that's a place that you're at, that you would pray with me. And that you would ask to start start afresh with God and begin to trust him more. Lord Heavenly Father, God, I thank you for today. God, I thank you for this amazing group of people. God, I thank you for your mission here at thatchurch.com. I thank you for us being able to reach people, God. God, we thank you for loving on us. Even when we don't deserve it, even when we were ugly and beyond recognition and dumb and we make silly mistakes. But God, you loved us anyway. And I thank you for loving on us. Continue to reveal to us your love. Continue to pursue us in a relationship, God. And love on us daily. In your name I pray. Amen.